Just for the purposes of the recording, I'm Polly Ellis, I'm the Head of Legal Services. You might note that the Chair is absent from the meeting today, so the first item on the agenda will be to nominate the Chair of this meeting. Can I have a nomination?
Yes, I'll nominate
Steve.
Steve.
Steve is his name.
And can I have a second?
I'll second that.
So, Councillor Gaynor-James, you've nominated Councillor Evans. Councillor John James, you've seconded that nomination. Could we just take a vote on that, please? That's unanimous. So, Councillor Evans, you've been elected as chair of this meeting. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you all, and thank you, Gaynor. Anyway, so that was very good. Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of the Planning Committee. This Planning Committee is being broadcast live on the internet and will be available to view online now and in the future. Please be aware that this meeting is being transcribed only for the purpose of producing the minutes. This transcript will be deleted once the committee approves the minutes. The transcript should not be downloaded by anyone other than Democratic Services. We welcome the use of Welsh language in meetings. I've had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Those attending in the chamber, please be aware that we're all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Committee members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. Please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. May I remind members that a statutory guidance made under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending the meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by the members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask you all, please use your cameras for the duration of the meeting. And thank you for that. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance and apologies. Rachel, do we have any apologies?
Yes, I've received apologies from Councillor Carl Gordon and Councillor Norma Parish.
And can I put in there Councillor Stewart Ashton? Thank you. Item 2, declaration of interest. Please can you ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any interest to declare, please, Rachel?
Let's start with yourself, Councillor Evans.
Great. We'll start first. I've been written as part of the consultation in regard to it, just sort of circling part of my ward. But I'm not being consulted in any way with anything that's going on within the ward, so just stating that. So no.
Okay. Councillor John Horler.
Non-prejudicial as a member of Pontypool Community Council.
Councillor Gaynor-James.
Yes, a member of Pontypool Community Council.
Councillor John James.
Yeah, member of Pontypool Community Council.
Councillor Janet Jones.
None that I'm aware of.
Councillor Mark Jones.
I'm a community consultee on the Mills Main project.
Okay. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for that. Thank you, members, for that. Agenda item 3, minutes of the Planning Committee from the 24th of September 2025. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I would take them as approved. Is everybody happy with the minutes? So you have all read them? Are we in agreement? Yeah. Thank you for that. We'll now move on to agenda item 4, which is a planning application 24P0451 DNS. Proposed wind farm compromises 13 horizontal axis wind turbines, that's a mouthful, along with an improvised site entrance, new and improved access track, crane standings, control building and substation compound, electricity transformers, underground cabling and drainage works at land at Minute Main Wind Farm. Can I ask Justin Jones, Principal Planner, to present the report? Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Committee. I'm just Trying to share the report. Hopefully it'll come through now. Okay, can you, those that are remotely, can you see that on your screens as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, great, thank you. So as Councillor Evans has said, this is a proposed wind farm. As we know, and we've discussed many times, the Development of National Infrastructures, we're not making the decision, but we send the reports to PEDU, who will be the ultimate decision maker. You will recall that we looked at this scheme back in June this year, and as a result of that, we submitted a local impact report, and on the back of that, then we've had some additional information, which is the subject of the discussion today. So we'll go for a quick run through as an aide-memoire of the site. So the red outline shows the application site, which is on primarily the Mynyddyn Common. These additional red areas you see here are complementary common land. Access is through Caerphilly County Borough Council rather than through Torfaen, and is from that direction primarily, as shown on the screen. Here's the configuration, as we've seen last time. There's the 13 wind turbines. We've got the little borough pits here. We've got the temporary construction compound, and then we've got the substation, as you can see here. There's an indicative view of the three-blade wind turbine. Again, as we discussed last time, it's up to 149 metres in height. And as we discussed before, there's a trade-off between height and the number of wind turbines you need. So the higher the turbine, the fewer you have. So this is the lowest ones are the ones that we've looked at, Chair Committee. And obviously this is the one that's got the most number of turbines as a result. So if we look at some of that detail, so if we look at the borough pits, so this is to create the access roads and the foundations for the turbines. So obviously you can see they're located here in green on the screen, in between turbines T6, T7 and T9. That diagram isn't particularly clear, unfortunately, but basically the depth of it at its deepest part is 5 metres. And obviously, as we discussed last time, those borough pits, once they've been excavated, will remain and form part of the ecological mitigation through ponds, and will have vernacular areas around them to create that additional habitat. We look at, as we looked at last time, the substation, typical configuration as we discussed before. There's the need for the inverters to convert the power from the wind turbines so it can go into the electricity grid from DC to AC again. This is how it looks visually, as we discussed last time. So that was a quick run through of what we discussed last time. And on the back of that, then, the applicant has had the chance to look at the cultural heritage, ecological, landscape and visual, mineral safeguarding, peatlands, and they updated their planning statement and planning benefits. Don't forget, these responses aren't just in relation to what we've said, but it's in relation to what other consultees have made, such as Natural Resources Wales, Cardiff, the Historic Environment, and Caerphilly County Borough Council. For the purposes of this meeting, Chair, we will look at the matters that we looked at before and how that's been addressed by the applicant, if at all. So if we look at the first one, you will recall that the ecologists had concerns about that. There was no BAT data in terms of collision, and that's all outlined within the committee report, so I won't go over that. In response to that, the applicant's view was that they didn't need to and that they weren't able to do so because obviously it's a new development. But critically, they'd had discussions with Natural Resources Wales. As members will be aware, bats are a protected species under European legislation for which still applies within the United Kingdom. In terms of the key points of the ecology impact in terms of the restoration, it's exactly the same as what we looked at before. So as you can see on the screen, it's restoration of management of the dry heath, bracken control, which is to take it out, and control of trees. Again, this is to take some of those more invasive trees out of the common land areas. Upon creation and management, as we discussed, that will be where the borough pits are. and then the hydraulical naturalisation through the improved condition of the wetlands. That's again in relation to ponds and creating that wider water treatment areas. So fundamentally, there's been no change from what we looked at before to what they've submitted in terms of additional information. So if we look at the visuals, obviously there are two elements to this. One was the cumulative effect, which you can see, well, not particularly greatly, unfortunately, on the screen. But again, here's the application site here. And obviously, the top one shows you a very strong, pronounced ridgeline. As you can remember, as we've discussed with all these applications, Chair, Committee, that ridgeline forms a very visual break in the vista. And obviously, you can see here that with that's when it's mine, that's Llanrylith. What they haven't shown on this one is Abertillery, but that's roughly around about here. And there's concerns that that changing of that natural land would become more industrial through the wind turbines. And that's a view that we've expressed in the original LIR, and that is, they haven't made any changes to that and haven't provided any additional information other than to say that they stand by the original points. I think what's of use to maybe to members is that this concern has also been expressed by Caerphilly County Borough Council and by Natural Resources Wales insofar as it relates to the National Park. And again, the other part of that visual impact, apart from the cumulative, was also the impact upon residents, especially Pantygasseg, as we discussed last time. So if we look at some of those views. So this view that you're seeing here is taken from the play area, which I'm highlighting there, and it's at a distance of approximately over a kilometre away. But as you can see, that's the view that they will see compared to the ridge that they have at the moment. And again, taking into account that cumulative impact, so that's what they see at the front of the thing, of their properties, and then to the rear, around about here, as you can see, this is the view that they get. It's not like for like, because obviously the viewpoint that they've taken this from is round about here. So it's looking that way rather than from the houses that way. But again, the concern that we raised, as you will recall, Chair, was that they've got wind farms to the front, wind farms to the back, all within a 2-kilometre distance, and therefore, compared to what they've got now, which is the open aspect, is that considered an intrusive feature? And obviously, it'd be for the inspector to take that view. But again, the response back from the applicant was that it is what it is. Their assessment believes that given the distance away, it wouldn't have a detrimental impact upon the visual amenities or the amenities of those properties. Again, one of the other points that we raised, you can recall, was in relation to the square. There wasn't an actual view made of that. Let's try and put that into context of where the square is. So the square is just off the plan. It's there. It's just, you can just about see it there. And obviously their main vista is T9 is their main concern. And obviously those residents have made their own representation. And again, there's been no visual assessment other than the written form, but the closest we got to it is Upper Cumbraon, which is, as you can see on the screen there. So again, we've raised the point that has assessment fully considered the impact upon those residents? They believe they have, because it's in the assessment, but we've just asked and highlighted that for the inspector to consider. The other point that we discussed and raised concern is in relation to minerals. As we all know, minerals can only be extracted from where they're found. They're not movable, they're fixed. And as you can see on the screen here, here are the key deposits that we find within the area. So we've got high specification aggregate, which is generally used in high polished stone, as I recall from memory. That's used in roads. So where you have that gritty stuff where you slow down, it's that. And then obviously we've got sand and gravel, which is the yellow bits. These are all resources, as we've said, that are finite and can be found where they are, and so forth. They need to be protected, and that's what we have the policies to do. So if we look at the wider area, again, don't forget, as members will be aware, the regional aggregate is that each authority has to provide for its own proportion, and some authorities can't do that because they don't have those minerals, so it then relies upon the region to provide that, and that is based upon a projected need. So what this is showing you is where the key resources of the Pennant Stone are, and as you can see, there's quite a bit in Blaenau Gwent and a bit in Dulvine, and again, there'll be some more in Caerphilly. So what does that mean? So what that means in relation to this application is primarily that we already know that we need to provide this aggregate, and we know that there's only certain areas you can provide it, because it can only be provided where it is found. So there are 3 key areas, and they're marked here. And obviously, as part of that, there is the need to blast, so therefore you have blasting zones, and they vary depending on what it is. So as you can see a number of these turbines are within the potential blasting zones, and that is a concern that we've raised. The applicants looked at that, they've had an expert in it, and their view is quite simple, is that, yes, we recognise that there are these minerals, but your ability to extract it, because you can't get to them, is limited, and therefore, during the lifespan of this development, which as we know is between 35 to 40 years, it isn't going to be economic for you to extract that, and therefore there isn't a risk to that minerals, and therefore the safeguard in that isn't an issue to look at. So they haven't added any more information beyond that. In terms of the peatland resources, as outlined in the report, again, we got that key factor, haven't we, of 4 metres or above and below, which is critical. So they've looked at that, and the key impact on that is saying that there's very little of it, of any substance, that can create natural habitat that needs to be protected, and therefore they're satisfied that the assessment that's been done is correct, and therefore there's nothing more that can be done in relation to that. And then in terms of plan statement, it just reiterates the points that they've said, that they've looked at all the matters that have been raised, and they stand by the original points that they've stated. And that's the end of the presentation. I'll happily take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Any members got any questions they would like to ask, Justin? No? Well, I will. Huh? I'm still concerned by the no changes and the environment and the environmental impact it'll have on that particular area, because there is a woodland around that sort of area. So I would imagine it would have a pretty good impact.
Yeah, and obviously we've, as part of our assessment, consulted with the County Borough ecologist, and she's broadly happy with the mitigation that comes forward, but obviously the key impact for her was obviously in relation to the collision, and obviously is what we've seen on other wind farms, is that they've done an assessment on that collision data, and we know what that theoretical risk is. So for us it's disappointing that that hasn't come forward in the manner as the other wind turbine, but in the defence of the applicant, is that they have taken views from Natural Resources Wales. Natural Resources Wales are comfortable with the submitted information that an appropriate assessment can be mitigated through conditions.
Thank you for that. Councillor Janet Jones, you've got a question for Justin?
Yes, thanks, Chair. It's just an observation relating from the last meeting. Nothing has changed, and yet we're still concerned with the impact it will have potentially on our World Heritage Site. Although it's further down the valley, it's going to have an impact, and I need to keep that reminding everyone on that agenda, please. So other than that, Steve, that it's no change, so I can't see that we have anything else to do, only reaffirm our concerns from previous meetings.
Yeah, and that's right. I think just to keep members up to date, because obviously, as you've read in the report, we had asked for a little delay so that members could look at it before we submitted the updated local impact report. But obviously, given the tight time frame, everyone able to accommodate us on this occasion, because we are looking to have a hearing on this application soon. We'll keep members updated on that, and obviously when those dates and what those topics are, I'm sure we'll make sure members are updated. If they want to come along and observe, they're more than welcome to.
Thank you for that. Is there any more questions from anybody before we move on? No? Well, as you're aware that there's no recommendation. This item is for noting only. So, if we can all note it, and thank you everyone for your attendance and the contribution this morning. I will now close the meeting.